everybody. My name is Linda. I'm a recently retired teacher from the Central Bucks School District. And I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about the Citizenship Challenge. My fifth grade class participated in the last 9 years. 8 of those years, my class came out in the top 10. And I wanted to share a little bit about the success we've had and the process we went through. First question you might have is, why should I even bother participating in this competition? And I have to tell you that my class consistently ranked this probably their favorite, or at least their top 3 favorite things we did throughout the school year. And the biggest reason is it's true experiential learning. Your students are getting to dig in and do some research on a constitutional question, but they're also getting the opportunity to really think and debate and share their opinion and feel like what they say makes a difference. And there's not a lot of situations in school where kids really get to feel that ownership to what they're learning. Another benefit too is that they get to debate things that relate to at least the 5th grade curriculum in Pennsylvania, and it allows them to really think about that constitutional question. So let me talk a little bit about what I did with my class and the process that I would go through. Very first day that we would meet and talk about this, I would explain to them what the question was, what the competition was. And on the Citizenship Challenge or Rendell Center website, there's a little video clip, maybe 5 minutes long, that shows the actual final competition. I would show my class that. Then we would talk a little bit about whatever the question was. Usually I would try and find a brain pop or some little clip online that related to the question so that I could give the students a general educational understanding of the question. So this year, for example, in 2024, the question has to do with electoral college. So I would use that brain pop video so they can understand what the electors are and the electoral college process. And then I would share some other things, we'd talk about it. And then at that point, we would take a class vote on whether or not we want to participate in the competition. And usually by then, when they realize that they have an opportunity to be in the top 10, if they write a great paper, and that would mean a free trip to the Constitution Center, and that they would be on television, all of those things generally were huge reasons why my class unanimously every year wanted to participate. So that's all really that first lesson period. And then I give them homework and I give them a piece of paper with the question. And sometimes I'll have some guiding points on that. And I ask them to take it home and discuss it with whomever they choose. Could be mom and dad, could be older sibling, grandparents, cousins, whoever. And I give them a couple of days to really have a conversation. Sometimes I'll even email parents, say, hey, this is coming home, please talk about it. And this is a good time for them to really get other opinions beside what we talked about in our class. The second lesson I set up because I want to gather all these thoughts that they've had. So what I'll do is I'll take big, huge pieces of paper, put them around the room, and then I usually write different questions at the top of each paper. We'll go through in the beginning and talk about what is this question? What kinds of answers are we looking for? And then I break them up and divide them into groups of like 3 or 4. And they'll go to one of the questions and they'll write on the paper whatever their thoughts are. And a lot of times this is when some of the parent comments come out, because you'll see what they've talked about at home. And some of them will be very passionate about their opinion on things, and others will have different opinions. So it makes for a great conversation. After about 3 or 4 minutes, then I rotate them to the next question. And we keep repeating that until all of the posters have thoughts from each of the groups of 3. And I find that this is like a great place for them to really kind of see, oh, wow, everybody else thinks about this, but in different ways. And at the end of that time, I kind of go through some of the thoughts that are recorded. Depending on our time frame, we might read some of the things or talk about it. Some days we would just kind of gather those up, and that would really be the ending point. What I like to do either at that point, at the end of that second lesson or the beginning of the third, is I ask them if they feel passionate about one of the questions. And I ultimately want to divide them among the questions or topics into groups of 3 or 4, because those will be the paragraphs they'll be writing. And a lot of times, this is the one part that I usually do when I'm coming up with those questions. I think, what would we need to answer in a paper? So for example, the question on electoral college, one of the questions is, why did the founders come up with the electoral college? So that might be one question. Another one, what's the advantages of the current electoral college system? What are the disadvantages? And so all of those would be things that we would be wanting to identify in the paper. So I do usually come up with those questions, but then the kids take it from there. Lesson 3 and usually lesson 4, sometimes lesson 5, depending on my class, students would be broken up into those core questions, and their responsibility is to dig in a little deeper, research a little bit if they need to, but they have to come up with a paragraph that answers that question. And that paragraph really should be pretty complete in making sure that they address all the issues. Sometimes a group might have 2 paragraphs or even 3 to answer their question, and that's okay. When this is going on, I usually try to have some aides that are around to help me, because a lot of them in the beginning will have questions when we get going with the writing. And then I can usually kind of monitor and just work my way around the room. But I find that it's important for them to be able to type this up. I used OneNote, Microsoft OneNote with my class, so that everyone had access to each of these questions and paragraphs that were being written. Some classes have used Google Drive or Google Docs. Whatever you need to do, I found it important to have it electronically typed where other kids could kind of jump in and revise and edit. After each group has their paragraph done, then what I do is I pull all the paragraphs together into a format of one paper. And that one paper I project up, and usually I can do it in one lesson. Sometimes I have to take 2, but I'll pull the whole paper up, and it'll be rough because one group usually works on the introduction, one will do the conclusion, and then all those questions. So I put it in order, and then we start reading it out loud. And this is where I'm really teaching them the art of revising and editing. And we find very quickly, oh, wow, we just repeated that same thing again in this paragraph, in this paragraph. So they learn that you have to look at the overall cohesiveness, but you also have to make sure that you're answering your question and that there's a good flow. So this is a great opportunity early in the school year to teach them about that process of revising and editing your writing. So once we get it kind of completely done through once, we let it sit for a day or 2, and then we'll come back and do kind of a final edit. At that point, a lot of times I try and share the paper with either my social studies curriculum advisor. Some years I've gone to a high school social studies teacher, said, hey, can you read this and see if I'm missing anything, or, you know, if our class needs to focus differently. I'll usually have my principal take a look at it. So I try and get a couple of other eyes and ears on it. Sometimes we'll have another classroom of 5th graders read it as well. But then once we get to that point where we feel like, okay, we're ready, we'll do the final read through. We'll agree that that's the paper we want to submit, and then we submit it. Most years I was able to accomplish this in 5 or 6 lesson class periods. Some years a little bit longer, most years, but it ran about 5 or 6. The great thing is I used both my writing time and my social studies time. So I wasn't just pulling from one core subject area. I was able to really pull from different areas, and it overlapped with my 5th grade curriculum. And if you think about our curriculum needs, you're really teaching them a lot about writing, but you're also teaching them about the Constitution and hitting those government objectives that you have for social studies. So overall, you're able to pull your lesson time from either writing or from social studies. And to me, it makes for a real win-win because the kids get involved and really love learning about this and sharing their opinion. So once we would submit, we'd wait anxiously to hear. And, hopefully if you follow these steps or something similar, your class will have the great opportunity to participate in the finals like we did. I wish you guys good luck and success. There are some notes also attached on the webpage that you can follow, and good luck.